All right, so welcome into the live stream. We're going to be breaking down, of course, the big news from last night, and that is the ETH ETF approval. What could be next? What's happening out there in the market right now? Why isn't ETH coming off the hook? We'll break it all down for you guys. You're going to love it. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back in the Tech Path. Let's just jump into the topic that, of course, everybody's talking about right now, and that is the SEC approved 8 Ethereum ETFs. There you have it: Grayscale, Bitwise, iShares, VanEck, ARC21, all the names that we typically know from the Bitcoin ETFs. Also jumping into the ETH ETF game, of course, Fidelity and Franklin Templeton coming in there as well. A lot of good names in here because of the interest in Ethereum. And what I mean by that is we talked about this and had them on the show many times. If you look at not only the Fidelity team, the Franklin team, the VanEck team, all, I think, have a pretty good edge on where this might be going. So the key here is they're going to be pitching this to their clients. So that's the thing that will help it grow. Other things out there, just in, BlackRock's Spot ETF has been listed on the DTCC. So that's next step. This will be called ETHA. I like that, ETHA. That's a good one. Further into this, here's Metalama and James Murphy coming in. SEC approval of applicants by various exchanges to list ETH ETFs constitute a declaration by the SEC that ETH is a commodity. That, of course, has been something that Metalon and I talk about often, and the positioning that the SEC has had. I think all of this has leaned into what really has started from a regulatory standpoint. I think this has kind of moved so quickly. SAB 121 was probably the accelerant that created this. You then throw in a little Trump, magic, and then you've got all this happening in Congress. And now everybody kind of understands this is the next step in evolution for finance. So all of it somewhat expected out there. Further into this, I want to go into this tweet right here. This is James Seyffert. He was kind of hitting it, saying, hey guys, it's not happening. And then right after that, of course, he was, all right, boom, we're approved. So, zoom in on that. And, James, he hit this actually. James was on our show. I think this might have been the time in which he actually did call it. And let's go to that clip real quick. Let's take a look. Or what's your theory on how Ethereum might make it into an ETF?
So for Ethereum lovers, you're not going to like this answer, but we say active Congress. Usually you say that like something like crazy needs to happen, but like you actually probably do need an active Congress before an Ethereum ETF is approved.
Well, there you go. James has hit it because he said we would need an act of Congress. And what did we get? We got an act of Congress to do it. And of course, I think that was the trigger. Of course, we'll continue to see, I think, a lot of interesting moves around what may move strategically, especially in reference to positioning the strength of this ETF. Because I think that's the next real question when I say this ETF, the group of ETFs. And that is, how is it going to perform against the Bitcoin ETF? How will that play out? A lot of people are really looking at that. Now, there's one clip here from Jay Clayton who gets into why this might be a little bit different. Listen in.
Gary Gensler and the SEC went kicking and screaming to allow the Bitcoin ETF, and only did so because a judge effectively said you have to. This is different. So what is different this time?
What is different this time is there was a settled issue of whether the underlier, Bitcoin, here the underlier is Ethereum, was a security or not, or transactions in Bitcoin were securities transactions. The SEC has not definitively said, up till now, and they still haven't definitively said, that underlying transactions in Ethereum are not securities transactions.
Is part of this because of what Congress just did this week to pass this first crypto bill and basically say it's going to be the CFTC that is overseeing all of this? Is this them putting another chip on the table saying, wait a second, we want to claim our legal framework for this? Progress, development, whatever you want to call it in this space, was always going to be incremental. What did they do this week in Congress or over the last couple of weeks? They made more clarity around custody and the cost of providing custody services for digital assets because they weren't happy with the way the SEC had done it. Now with this bill, they're saying, look, we want a path for products like Ethereum, other digital assets, to be able to trade like securities.
So there you have it, other digital assets, and this also looms in on the SEC being so quiet about this. Here was Eleanor Terrett coming in from Fox Business there. A little tidbit she received, Commissioner Crenshaw is actually out on maternity leave. This was delegated. The authority means the commission lets staff approve the ETH ETF on its behalf. So a very interesting move there by the SEC, I think, in terms of this getting through. And remember, zero statements from the SEC commissioners right now on the spot ETF. So silence, definitely I agree with Nate Garassi there saying it speaks volumes going into this. The key here is what's next step. Also, what happens after that, we'll get into all of that. We're going to be dropping another video, by the way, that will break down a lot of the projects that we think could potentially flow into maybe what's next, but also a litany of new ETFs that most likely will hit the markets now that we've seen some clarity start to align very quickly. Here's analysts predicting that ETH ETFs to launch by mid-June. A couple of points they hit on here. Guess there's only one round of comments on the S1s. That's really what has to happen next, because that would be the final approval, really, the S1s. So that's a big deal. Certainly a possibility. So just a guess, we'll see. This was coming in from Balshunas. And then, of course, expectations for the spot ETFs are high. Safer predicts they could track 20% of the spot Bitcoin ETF flows. Balshunas is a little bit lighter. I'm actually a little bit stronger than that. But again, I look at it from a digital asset standpoint, and people starting to understand the validity of what ETH really brings to the market. Bitcoin ETFs have accumulated 13.3 billion in net inflows. Capturing 20% would mean we'd see 2.6 billion in inflows. Not bad for an altcoin that's coming out into an ETF world. So make sure and smash the like button. If you guys like these kind of breakdowns, we'd love to get your feedback. Also drop some comments over on the side. We'll try to get to some of those. And I'll view the queue here and see what they got lined up. Don't forget to hit the poll over there. We'll see how that's playing out as well. And I want to get into a couple other things, because this is important, because everybody's kind of wondering, Bitcoin retraced, ETH has not really started to unhitch. Is there a pause here before the storm? Because that's kind of what happened with the Bitcoin ETH, or the Bitcoin ETF when we saw that launch. Here's just a little bit of a breakdown. Only the 19Bs were approved, so not the S1s. That's kind of the next layer, but most likely that, pretty much done. Approval was by Division of Trading Markets, Delegated Authority. We just talked about that. They're trying to hide the vote because it's political. That's another thing that I think is still playing out of this. And remember that we have a lot of components that are starting to slide into the FIT Act. And we've done a whole slew of the FIT 21 acts from Patrick McHenry and that team. I want you to go back and watch some of those, because there's a lot of hidden gems in there that start to align maybe the strategies and the potentials of this market, these markets, I should say, digital assets in general, and how this may play out, in the financial architecture of the future here. So if you're brand new to crypto, you just joined at what I think is the most exciting time that we've ever seen. More exciting than, the ETH conversion, more exciting than really when Bitcoin hit all-time highs, more exciting than when we saw Meta really shift their focus. We are going to see a revolution, I think, that nobody is really ready for just yet. A couple other points here. When does spot ETFs go live? Expect a little bit of a bloodbath. There's some people looking at this similar to what happened with Grayscale. Remember, they launched with the Bitcoin, a little higher rates, because fees are always a big deal, but they've accumulated almost 9 billion worth of ETH before staking exists. These funds will be unlocked. So we'll see how that plays out. There's a little bit of a potential sell-off there. Historical precedent with Bitcoin suggests potential volatility after approval. Likelihood we'll see a pretty significant retracement, but get ready, because that would be the next move up. And of course, the awareness where all of this plays out. So I think a lot of people, and I'd love to get you guys' feedback. Do you think that we're going to be in a position to where we see that much of a retracement, or is ETH going to play out a completely different way? Because many people still look at it potentially as maybe a completely different alternative. Here's just on the ETH discount there from the Grayscale Trust, just to give you an example of where this was trading in July of last year, just less than a year ago. 46% on the discount versus where we're trading at right now. Obviously from the pump here, now only negative about 5.5%. So pretty crazy stuff, guys, because I think this is one of those things also that creates the potential of those firestorm bull markets, because it starts to open up, one, mainstream investing. It also starts to open up projects to really understand that there's an opportunity and a new path in the biggest global financial system in the world, and that is the United States, and what this might mean. This really starts to set the table, I think, for the next generation of what we're going to see going after the market. Spot ETF makes BlackRock very eager to push things a little bit faster. So there's trending. There's a couple of coins here that they've kind of outlined that will get into some of the narratives around Ethereum. And that is, if you just think about the ETH ecosystem, you're going to look at things like Chainlink, Ondo, many others that are going to have a lot of upside. So keep an eye on those. We'll probably get you guys, we will get you videos on a lot of those narratives that are potentially hitched to Ethereum, and especially in the layer twos, because that is something that I think we're going to continue to see a bunch of movement. Speaking of layer twos, this is just the last 7 days, so a little bit of a nice move from about 40 billion up to around 45 billion, so another almost 10% on the 7-day. But if you look at that over the 30-day period and then all the way out into 90, so you can kind of see the opportunity has not yet completely presented itself. A lot of upside going in here for sure. What else do we have? All right, so here's a nice piece right here. Is Ethereum, is the ETH ETF real, threat real? Analysts are predicting whether or not ETH would flip Bitcoin. And this is one that we talk about, here in our own research team quite a bit. Is it the time? Could it happen? They're anticipating it could, but it's by the next halving. That's still a ways down the road if you think about that, flipping before the next halving. Wall Street gets this. It's an entire ecosystem with borrowing, lending, issuance, tokenomics, staking, yield. They understand this because it's what they do every day. Plenty of them to work with in terms of just kind of hanging in there in one spot. Also, the layer 2 ecosystem, not fully fledged. That I think is going to continue to really start to accelerate. And then Bianco, this is Jim Bianco talking about this, claimed that ETH could work against Bitcoin layer 2s, which could, yes, that could be the case now, only because of the new positioning of how we're going to see digital assets move forward. This is another statement, just as it's easier to hodl in a regulated brokerage account than it is on chain. So that's the other thing that's going to enter in a lot of regular, traditional, and institutional capital, but also traditional investors that they're not ready for the kind of things that I are accustomed to in blockchain. But think about this. This is usually the gateway drug, whether it's an easy, no risk ETF, and then the next step is they move into an exchange, they start trading their own, and then of course it's self-custody. So all of those processes will happen, especially as digital assets become somewhat mainstream. This kind of hits it on the head right here. Ethereum is the new internet, and if you think about its freedom that is provided, around what we've seen with the internet, but there's something else here, and that is that the extension of opportunity here, whether it's L2s or what we'll see within an expanding Web3 world, gaming, digitalized or tokenized assets. Of course, we'll see all sorts of integrations into loyalty platforms, etc. This could really start to set things out. If you just look at the layer 2 ecosystem, you kind of see the potential of what this might look like in a very short time. And this is just the beginning. So if you look back in the beginning of the internet and the pre-2000 era, if you kind of go look at that, there was like a $7 to $8 trillion industry in that era, which is in the late 90s, and the expansion that grew to in a very short period of time. That's the kind of growth we could be experiencing, especially if you couple this with what's happening in AI and the interlinking that seems to be happening around blockchain projects as well. So there'll be a lot of that going on. Last tweet here, and I'll get to it because this gets into the next framework, and that is, well, with all this tech and with all this regulatory thing, you still have to have an economy. You still have to have a global macro positioning to be able to succeed. And, asset managers now, they don't foresee a recession within the next 12 months. That's a good sign. 78% of asset managers currently say that a recession within a year is unlikely. And this is up from 65, so they're getting more confident. March, and that was recorded in March, the highest share of respondents since February. And then in November of 22, roughly 90% of portfolio managers anticipated a recession. So it's almost an about face over just a period of not even 2 years. So a pretty big pivot. And when you look at the pivot we're talking about, we are getting into what could be a very good position for how the global economy could be embracing all this new productivity and now regulatory clarity around the next 12th sector of the financial system. We're going to get into some questions. Make sure and smash the like button right now. We love to get your feedback. I want to go to the poll real quick and see what you guys think about this today. All right, so which token has the most ETF hype? Wow, Solana is absolutely on fire. XRP was number 2. So we had, this is interesting because the video we just did, I don't know if, is it up yet, guys? Okay, so it's not up yet. We're going to put a video up. You want to go watch it because it's a breakdown of those 4 projects that we just showed on the poll, but there's also another 3 or 4 projects that we include as well. There's going to be some surprises in there. So go watch that video. It's going to be a good one that breaks down what could be next and why. There's a lot of reasonings for each one of those. So, but you guys were kind of in the same rank as us. We hit Solana as number 1. All right, and we still like XRP. XRP could be a wild, kind of a black horse here coming through as well. Let's get into some questions. Solana doesn't have the network stability, but they have the narrative, the narrative and the ecosystem, the potential for growth in all of the categories. There's just a lot there. Very similar to an ETH in a way, in terms of ecosystem strength. ETH still pretty quiet even after ETF. And I think there's reasons for that. We'll probably won't see real ETH movement. Our anticipation right now, based on what we're seeing on the sentiment data, is looking like it's going to be sometime in June before we start to see some adjustments there. Anyone out there still believe in Cardano? I think there's a lot of Cardano lovers out there still, even though they just don't get a lot of the press. And of course, we don't cover them a lot here on the channel, but not necessarily for any reason. Something decentralized and proof of work. So why not Litecoin? That's a good one. That is a good one. Why not Litecoin? Sol is the obvious choice for next ETF. Nobody wants XRP. Wait, it doesn't launch today. No, it doesn't launch today. What else do we have? Solana. Man, you guys are crazy on Solana. Huge hype. XRP should be next. The only one with some clarity. Agreed. XRP, like I said, it's a little bit of the dark horse because there's some options there with XRP that could really play into this summer. Don't forget they're doing their stablecoin launch. We'll see that this summer. It's coming and just around the corner. A lot also, I think, in terms of the connected community of what XRP could be revealing in Amsterdam. So watch that for sure. Next ETF is going to be a blend. That could be also the case. Solana Avalanche would be a nice one. Bitcoin dominance clawing its way back up. ETH ETF, big fat nothing burger, Nelson says. All right, Mr. Mark Nelson there. ETH will never get approved. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we saw that. Pulse Chain ETF. Okay, man, you guys are really going out there. All right. And Gary did say Solana is Security XRP next on the ETF side. Ondo is great. I like all these comments. We love to get your feedback, guys. This is the cool thing about doing the live streams. We love to get your feedback, and it's a good thing because we get a chance to interact with the audience, and it's also a good understanding of where your mindset is. And sometimes for us, it's good for us to understand where your direction is going because it helps us kind of guide some of the narrative of the shows and the editorial. So keep doing that. Of course, if you're not in the Diamond Circle, that's another great place you can also participate, and that is easy to join. Just click the link down below. Follow me on X. It's just @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.